Welcome along, one and all, to League of Europe Season 11, about to finally get underway in just a few minutes' time. This is round one of the 11th hour, the 11th season of League of Europe action, coming to you from the Jeddah Street Circuit in Saudi Arabia. We should get just about a full grid of drivers. Of course, we didn't get that in the pre-season race. Thankfully, we look to have better fortunes this time around to take you through the action here tonight. We are bringing you the new dynamic duo of D1 comms. It is Dake H and Jake M. Jake M, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Jake M, also known as Killer Blue, recently renamed myself to Blue Noon. This is my first season of League of Europe. I've been here forever. It's my first season where I've not signed up as a driver because I love talking with Dake H just that much. The opportunity was too good to turn down. But yes, I'm excited for this one. Torrid track to start with. I loathe Jeddah Corniche circuit with a burning passion. But we have many rule changes, many driver changes, lots of exciting unknowns. I think it's going to be an absolute belter.
I agree fully with that. So, as Jake mentioned, we do have a number of rule changes going into this season. If you were watching the pre-season race, which not many of you did, I must be honest, then you will know already. But just in case you don't, one big change to the race format we are seeing is a change in the way the race is run, with two mandatory pit stops instead of just the one. And that will change the way things function, even in qualifying, as we're about to see. We're going to be settling in there very, very shortly. So, two mandatory pit stops, still the same two compound rule. So, Jake, how do you think that's going to change how these drivers actually function out there on the circuit?
It's more of an unknown quantity, I think, than that rule change usually is, because we've seen it in the 24-hour event, but usually a two-stop mandatory race is coupled with no safety cars. But we still have safety cars in effect, so I think you could see, well, particularly lower down in Division 3, you might see some weird strategies on play. But I'm intrigued if we'll ever see the hard tyre at any point in this season, or if we'll just see people go with softs and mediums all the way, which is what we saw in the 24-hour event. I don't know what impact it's going to have. I would expect it's going to favour perhaps those more aggressive racy drivers, opportunists, I think. I don't know, Nathan springs to mind. I don't know why. GR Russell 63, he just springs to mind as someone who I think would benefit from perhaps a little bit of the chaos that a two-stop race would breed. I say that, he's not even racing tonight, is he?
He's not, no.
No, so I've overhyped that one. But for the season, that is. Actually, I'll say this because we did some org predictions, and we can mention those later on. But I said for my D1 surprise of the season, I think everything, the point system, two-stop system, is set up beautifully for QVR Verstappen to do something special this season, I think. He's kind of lurked in D1 for so long. I think this rule change is going to benefit him greatly. And perhaps people like Rocco as well, who are also a bit of an opportunist.
Yeah, I can see that. Of course, QVR Verstappen actually won the pre-season race last week, so certainly looking to be in good form ahead of this one. So we're just going to get now started in this first qualifying session. So let's get things started. I believe GR Shadowglow in the Williams is the first driver out on track. Driver that I don't think either of us know very much about, but certainly one that, by all accounts, and certainly in the pre-season race as well, should be right up there in terms of speed. Now, this Jeddah track, we are looking at around about a high 25 to low 26 probably for the top guys. Really, in the banker laps, you want to be getting at least somewhere in that 126 range. We'll see if these guys are able to manage it. Watch out for slipstream, especially these guys that you've just seen coming past the midpoint of the circuit on the sort of return journey down to turn 27 right at the end of the lap. Series of high-speed corners, lot of it flat out, so expect slipstreaming all the way down here, and certainly in the race as well, with 3 DRS zones. Coming down here, it's going to be almost impossible to break away, and a big advantage to be gained from running behind in this section.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a snake all the way through at least the first stint of this Grand Prix. So impossible to break away with those 3 DRS zones. I think the 2-stop could possibly break up the train a little quicker than perhaps we might be used to seeing. QVR Gary is going to be the first one to set a lap in this Division 1 qualifying session, unless he goes invalid. And I have to say, I think Gary's hanging on to Division 1 by the absolute skin of his teeth right now after his performance in pre-season. But let's see what he can do. 27 corners, more corners here than any track on the Formula 1 calendar. Nicely hooked into turns 1 and 2 for Gary, and we'll see how he goes through this windy, tilkery first sector. I've forgotten how to commentate. We're flowing through this double left-hander and then a double right-hander. There's a curb on the outside there that can really trip you up. That one on the inside as well. And if you skittle over that one, it can send you quite wide. But that's nicely done for Gary as he comes through the first sector towards the hairpin now of turn 13. You want to pick up the throttle early, but don't be too greedy with the throttle because the back end will spit you out. No problem at all. 14 and 15 are non-corners, but 15 does make the entry to 16 here. A little bit blind-sighted. Gary finds the inside of the corner well, and then we've got a couple more non-corners, 19, 20, that just block your sight lines all the way through down to the devilishly tricky turn 22. We've got a Ferrari on the left-hand side who keeps well out of the way. Gary, if you committed, you flick it in early here, and you just close your eyes and go for it. And this looks tidy from Gary. No doubt it'll still be tragically slow, but through 25 and 26, another unsighted straight at DRS zone towards turns 27. Brake early in a straight line, turn the car in early. You want to pick the throttle up early as well. And I think Gary ended up opening the corner a little bit early there, but a nice lap nonetheless. And let's see what it is. It's a 26.2. That is a very competitive lap from Gary.
That was very clean indeed, although it's just pepped by GR Shadowglow. It was nice that you remembered your commentating skills in the early stages of that lap, making a bit of a comeback. So you can see these early times coming in. QVR Campbell going to P3. So again, all these times are quite good. Again, Banker should be getting into the mid-26s at least, as we're seeing. Ariel Felipe has not done that, done a full second slower than anyone else. So we'll keep an eye out as these early times continue to come in. And really another factor in this new mandatory 2-stop rule has to do with the tyre allocation, particularly in this qualifying session, because if you plan on using the soft tyre in the race, I'm not sure how many of these drivers plan on doing that. The softs tend to go off after around 4 or 5 laps around this track, but realistically, it means then, with the tyre allocation that's available, you can't just go about doing so many runs on the softs. So these guys are going to have to be more sparing with it. That is why Slash, I presume, has done a lap on the green-walled intermediate tyres to kick off his session.
Yeah, I think just get a lap on the border track here. Easy to invalidate, perhaps even crash. More so in D2 and D3, probably, but I think that's wise from Slash just to have a lap there. Back, he's done a very slow lap as well. I think he was fuel burning, possibly. As Yassir Sakil, is that Saki or Sakil, goes P3, just 33 thousandths per second shy of Gary. And that lap from Gary is holding up, as I say that out, makes it a Williams provisional front row so far, first and second. And that is the first lap's done for everybody, I believe, because NLR Lars van der Linden is not going particularly quickly down at turn 22.
No, I think he invalidated. I think I just saw the time. It was a 26.9 invalid, so that would have brought that to an end. I believe just starting a lap, we have Sweet Crown in the Mercedes, of course, now a veteran in Division 1. 4th last season, picking up a race win at the Italian Grand Prix, so expect him to go well, of course. Always a mainstay near the top of Division 1. Coming through the end of the first sector then, flying through, just missing some of those high curves. You don't want to be running over those all too much. And the first sector time is a 31.7. That's right in the competitive range. You want to be around about the mid-31s, you would think, at a turn 13. And now down the... As we see, Baki is further along on the track, does a 26.7. Back to Sweet Crown as he heads down the first of the Isn't Straights in the second part of this lap. Oh, dearie me. That Ferrari just about jumping out the way. Through turns 22 and 23, flicking it left and then right. Over these flat curbs, you can, of course, ride those, and then down the second Isn't Straight with DRS open. Beginning to gear up for the braking zone into the final corner, picking that out just past 100 metres, downshifting third gear, holding that all the way through, gradually applying that throttle pedal and then flying up towards the line, opening up that DRS for the third and final time at Jeddah Circuit. He goes 6th, right in the middle of the field with a 126.5. Still a couple of guys on outlaps then, but you can see the action isn't quite as frantic in this qualifying session because everyone is trying to save those tyres.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a trend for the season. We'll see people doing 2 runs or perhaps intermediates and 2 runs. I know if Nathan was here, he would have done 2 runs on the intermediates. Quite likely. It's Saudi Arabia, they're not going to be in any particular kind of use. CPI Troye is on a lap in the Haas, the 2 Haas's, neither of them have set a lap time so far, along with P's, Rocco, Lars van der Linden, Fleddy, and D2 champion Luke, and that looked very shabby on the exit of the first sector there, through turn 10.31.9. That's 2 tenths slower than what Sweet Crown did, who's only in P6 and more than half a second off pole position. So it's not a particularly good lap from Troye. It looks like he's carrying on with it. Let's see how he approaches turn 16, and look how far he was from the apex compared to we saw Gary earlier on. No commitment there. That's the kind of lines I take. I wince and squeal when I try to turn into turn 16 and 22 here. I end up nowhere near the inside of the wall because I'm scared of hitting it. Let's see about 22. That's a little bit better. And he still shaves some speed up on the exit, but it's not going to be a very quick lap. Luke's done a 32.7 first sector. That's even less competitive for our D2 champion. And I don't think anyone else has got such time yet. P's done a 31.8. That's also not very quick. Let's see what Troye does. To the line, stick to the left for a nice short run, or shorter run. It's a 26.8, only beating out Felipe and Slash. And Slash on the inters, of course, and Felipe was very open in the Discord that he does not expect to be quick by any metric this afternoon.
This afternoon doesn't seem to be much light out there, both in person, at least for me and you, and also here at the track. Ariel Pease is coming up to the line. A time was just set, didn't quite catch who that was. He goes 8th, 26.6. That was Luke's, as you seem to refer to, quite uncompetitive lap of a 127.834. Rocco was just behind Pease on the track. He's going a couple of tenths slower, probably tracking for a low 27, opening up that final corner, that delicate dance of the throttle pedal that you need to punch it out of the final corner on the run to the line, opening up the DRS yet again, and it is a low 27 at 27.1 to be exact. So that time from Alp, you have to say, as you can see, I'm watching on board with Shadowglow, who's getting that toe from Alp. You can see these 2 Williams guys have really worked this one out. He's getting that drag all the way through both of the Isn't Straights. Between them, of course, turn 22, which he ran through with maybe a little bit of safety margin, as you would probably expect. We're just under 8 minutes to go in the session, just past half time. There, he is released to take on that final corner. He's much more aggressive on the throttle than some of the other drivers we've seen around turn 27, so this is probably going to be right up there again in terms of time. He just slides behind his teammate. The second man into the 125 is a 125.928, just 200 shy of the time from Alp. And really, these 2 Williams, you can see how well they've coordinated that slipstream, and coupled with, I imagine, fantastic pace throughout the rest of the lap. Look at the effect it's having. They are well clear of anyone else at the moment.
I think Alp came out on the tyres he did his first lap on, did an outlap to tow round Shadowglow, and then came back in, and they'll probably return the favour on the final run. Gary was 800s down through the first sector. Remarkable that he's the nearest challenger right now to the top two. Former D1 champion QVR Campbell hasn't set the world alight so far. Gary's now down by a tenth of a second, but again through 22. That looked really hooked up from Gary. He might have clawed back a little bit of time. Campbell's up by 0.2 of a second through the middle sector. He could, but he's selling himself into P3, P2 and P1 seem a little out of reach, as you mentioned so far. Let's see what Gary can do around the final corner. He lets the rear of the car go, and I think it's going to be Campbell who's going to be the nearest challenger to those Williams drivers on this run.
Yeah, he gets a very clean exit off of that final corner. You can see the battery running down to about 20% over the line. It is a 26.1. It is just fractionally clear of that lap time from Gary. Verstappen is further back on the track, and I actually didn't see the time, but he does go sixth.
He gained 0.3, but didn't find any places, which tells you how big a gap there was between Sweet Crown and Gary. Lifeboat's just gone P4.
He has just 1,000th of a second behind his teammate for the night. He is a reserve driver, so that you don't expect him to be considered Campbell's teammate for the entire season. Interestingly, point on Campbell, who just went a couple of hundredths ahead of QVR Gary. I've got to keep an eye out, of course, on any potentially quick times coming in soon enough. I believe Lars van der Linden, though that time is invalidated. You mentioned the organisers' predictions for this season, and what I do remember for biggest flop of the season, biggest disappointment, if you will, Gary and Campbell said each other. So I imagine there's a de facto rivalry between those two that could be one to look out for throughout this season, potentially. Right now I'm seeing a lot of invalidated lap times, a lot of potentially slow lap times, as really, again, the action not quite as fierce as maybe you'd expect in a typical qualifying session. Do you see anyone on a flyer right now?
I don't, and I think what you just alluded to there is a consequence of the circuit. There's such a skill gap here. It doesn't breed a ferociously close qualifying session. And also, another aside is I don't think you could have insulted Campbell more than you did by suggesting Gary is a rival of his for the season. Yeah, Fleddy's not on a lap. Pesara has bottled it, and Lifeboat's on an in-lap. So it is... The tempestuous waters of the Jeddah Corniche have subsided with 4.5 minutes to go in the session, and then they'll all go back out again for one final run on the soft tyres. We've got a mix. Is anyone we can confidently say has done 2 runs? Shadow Glow has. He's used 2 sets of softs. Presumably, as Alp comes out of the pits, they both come out of the pits, Shadow Glow will now be on an old set, and Alp will be on the fresh set, so it'll be the reverse we saw in the second stint. I don't think anyone else has done 2 runs. Gary bailed on his second run. Verstappen has done 2 runs, but a lot of the drivers have only done, I think I'm right in saying, just 1 set of tyres so far.
Yes, I believe so, and obviously you have the likes of Slash using a set of intermediate tyres. Not sure why you'd go out, maybe just to somehow get a bit of a feel for the track. You're obviously not getting a feel for the tyre grip you're going to be experiencing when you're actually thrashing the car on these slick tyres around this circuit. Really what we're looking for in these final runs then, I presume just about everyone is going to be heading out onto track. Obviously the 2 Williams got out early, Felipe has gone out very early, the Aston Martin is currently at the very, very bottom of the leaderboard. The last 2 Division 2 champions finding life in D1 a little bit harder than maybe they'd expected, or maybe they didn't expect much at all actually. So 4 drivers yet to get in the 126s. Everyone has a somewhat representative time, but of course many of these drivers will be hoping for much more from these final runs, and the real question is that dominance of the Williams tracked by the 2 Alpines, can it be shaken? These 2 just look on a class above, and they are working in harmony as well, setting each other up for these 125s.
Yeah, just looking at the current tyre selection, Shadow Glow, you can see, already has a lap on his tyres. So if he's on old tyres, he's going to do to Alp what Alp did for him last time. So Alp could set a monstrous lap here if the rest of the lap, barring the straights, comes together for him. And let's go on board with Alp, shall we? Through the first sector, let's see what he can do. nice and tight through 1 and 2. Those corners kind of speak for themselves. They're not too tricky. You can stay inside of the painted curve there. You don't get an invalidation. We've got a car in our way. We've got a car really in our way. And that's one of the Alpha Tauris. I think that was Pease, possibly. I think, yeah, that is Pease. Pease completely blocking our provisional pole sitter there. A ironic penalty perhaps coming his way later on, because Alps, he's only 800s down. He's only 800s down through the first sector as he comes through turn 13. So there's still a cracking lap in here for him. Fair play to him for not getting his head thrown, and he's still got plenty of slipstream to come through the second part of this lap.
Yes, indeed, opening up the throttle, coming out of turn 17 now, opening up the DRS once again, and you can see that slipstream in full effect. He's going to have to commit fully, almost grazing the inside wall of turn 22, and then getting another toe out of that final complex. So, of course, the run up towards the final corner now. He's going to get within a couple of car lengths of his teammate, getting the effect right up towards the braking zone as Shadow Glow almost gets cut off by a car in front, and there was contact between him and I believe an Mercedes rather of Rocco. So anyway, Alp will continue. He was a 10th up to the middle sector. He does a 1:25.6, a huge lap time, and with his nearest competition in the session out, that's half a second to the good versus anyone else, despite the slight impeding from RLPs. Horrible incident there with Shadowglow and Rocco. I suppose Rocco not expecting a car to come up that close behind him that fast off the racing line. So I think that incident was probably quite unavoidable given the circumstances, but nevertheless, I'm not sure if Shadowglow was going to do a flying lap after that. I would say probably not. But now we look to the other non-Williams drivers to try and tackle that huge gap that separates them, that chasm from QVR Alp. Is another QVR driver, Campbell. I think we've just reacted to the same thing, clouting the inside wall at the end of the second sector. So I'm afraid that lap is not going to come good for him as Gary goes P3.
Gary goes P3, like Boucher starting his lap, as has Yassir Sakil. Verstappen will not improve. Fleddy's down by 200 through the first sector. Slash won't improve. Let's look at Sweetcrown through the first sector. He's up by a 10th and a quarter now through turn 13. He's not got any slipstream coming his way. His teammate Rocco has retired from session. Let's see. I think Sweetcrown's the furthest along of the top 10 who are yet to set laps. That turn 16 looked a little bit scruffy as we come through the isn't straights, and this is an occupational hazard with these straights. It's all what if that straight had been straight, Shadowglow would have been able to see Rocco offline going slowly, but as you're coming around blinded by the curve of the track, you can't see as far in front of you as you need to, especially when you're sticking to that extreme inside line. Let's see what Sweetcrown does. One corner to go, turn 27. He's going to be... Well, he's got a Red Bull just ahead of him. I think he's going to be finishing a lap now. Is that Backy in P14? Backy's only improving slightly to P11. Sweetcrown, where can he go? And it stays goes P6, sorry. Big improvement from him. And Yassir Saki is improving as well, just behind.
And so is Lifeboat, so let's see how this is going to unfold. Yassir coming up to the line, could go above, he goes third at a 26 flat, and that is just pipped by Lifeboat, who goes just a bit higher, 25.931. There's the two Haas drivers, they both invalidated their laps, so I believe that is it for qualifying. And QVR Alp, really a cut above the rest, a 25.6 Shadowglow despite the incident with Rocco going second. So a Williams front row lockout. Lifeboat oh so close to getting in amongst it there with third place. A really good result for the Alpine Reserve driver for this round. As I presume we're just going to have to wait for I think it's Gary that's holding everyone up just in the pit lane there. So Williams front row lockout. Of course, Jeddah, much more can happen in the race. Of course, we know about the mandatory two-stop strategies. So it's going to be tough for the other drivers, but even with that huge pace advantage that Alps seem to have over everyone else, here at Jeddah, it's going to be so difficult to break away as we still continue to wait. We may have to wait for the clock to count down all the way. No, we don't. Gary finally retires, so we can bring this session to a close.
Sorry, there were people, Pease and Rocco, are asking after a restart, and I don't see the point to prevent, for the sake of Rocco dropping from 18th to 19th on the grid. Sorry, Rocco, buddy. But the whole field covered by call it 1.5 seconds with the exception of Luke. Those Aston Martins really not doing themselves proud today. But what an advantage Alp has. Pole by the thick end of 0.3 per second, and Lifeboat only 3,000s in the end off the front row. And then Yassir, Gary, Campbell, Sweetcrown, Verstappen and Pleddy and Slash in the top 10. And then just outside Baki is my disappointment. Look at the gap between Slash and Baki there, 1/4 second. And P, Spicer, Lars van der Linden, Hazara, Troye, Felipe, Rocco and Luke.
Okay then, that is going to bring that session to an end. A huge gap, 2.1 seconds between the front and rear of the grid. I think that must be, I imagine, one of the biggest margins in a non-wet session from the tip to tail of Division 1 that we've seen probably ever. So we'll get into the Grand Prix itself then. Just loading in. Of course, the difference in tyre choice is going to be very, very interesting to see. I believe the medium is certainly the best race tyre. Here it offers very good durability, not too dissimilar from the hard tyres, but is about 4/10 or 5/10 of a second quicker per lap. Those softs, of course, as you'd normally expect from a soft tyre, explosive speed off the line, but the pace is going to start dropping a few laps in. I wonder if anyone's going to opt for those tyres first. There were a lot of drivers that were saving those softs in that opening session, so you'd maybe expect to see them opting to use them maybe at the start of the race, maybe at the end, maybe in the middle, who knows. We can split the race into 3 separate phases if you like, given the way the tyre strategies are going to unfold. So Jake, as we prepare to load in, we'll see how everyone's decided to approach this one.
And I'm very excited with this because what I love, we've got all 3 tyres represented. What I love about a 2-stop race is there's a good middle third of the race where we have absolutely no idea what the actual order of the grid is because everyone's on different strategies, and then it shakes out on the last 5 laps or so. Delighted to report there's no sign of a missile strike anywhere near the circuit, often known to be the case around the Jeddah Corniche. Jeddah is the second most populous city of Saudi Arabia after Riyadh, just ahead of Mecca. Wikipedia clutching up there with the commentary facts. But yes, we've got a split for the Williams drivers, medium and soft. Lifeboat and Yassir have gone medium. Gary and Campbell on hards together, coordinating in the QBR party, no doubt. Perhaps they know something everyone else doesn't, or perhaps that's why they've picked each other as flop of the season, because it's a case of dumb and dumber, because no one else has had the same thought as them. I would say the most obvious strategy is go medium, medium, soft, or medium, soft, medium. That's always probably the most obvious two-stopper. You never want to. I don't think you really want to start with softs unless you feel you're particularly out of place. And I don't think anyone is really out of place on this grid. So I don't think there's a benefit to starting soft, trying to make some early headway. Unless Shadow Glow's planning to pass Alp into turn 1 and scamper off Max Verstappen style. We shall see. But before you ask me for a prediction, I'll give you one. I think Alp never wins, no matter whether it's his fault or not. Races never go his way. So Shadow Glow's going to win. It's going to be Campbell second and Yassir third.
Okay then, let's see if that was going to unfold. I wasn't actually going to ask you for a prediction, but you have just given me one, so I do appreciate that. Alp from Pole has an infamous reputation in LOE for being, well, how to put this kindly, not the fastest coming off the line. So we'll see if he has improved on this, of course, in the one season out. Shadowglow you would expect to be a little bit quicker with the extra grip of the soft tyres to boot. But we'll see if Alp is going to come under pressure from behind or whether he can just scamper off into the distance. We will see, but everyone now looks to take their place on the grid. Hopefully no one misses their grid slot or overshoots it and gets sent back a few metres. Anyway, every car presumably about to get themselves lined up. Rocco, the last car, of course, maybe shouldn't be the last car, but he is coming up, taking his spot behind Felipe, the two Aston Martins near at the back. So we look to get this show on the road. 25 laps of Jeddah are in front of us as we look for the lights to come on. We got 3, 4, 5 lights. They leave the grid in Saudi Arabia. I've got a horrible camera angle, so I cannot actually see anything that's going on. But Shadowglow, there he is. He has taken the lead with Lifeboat coming up the inside of Alp. The two of them are going to go side by side through the opening couple of corners. Shadowglow in front and pulling clear. Alp holds on to second place from Lifeboat. Yasir, then the two hard runners behind that as they sweep through the opening sector of this Grand Prix. Indeed, the swap between the two Williams, as you thought would happen, has materialised as everyone filters all the way through the first half of the lap up towards turn 13. Shadowglow's start, the extra grip from the softs, using that to good effect. He's pulling clear early on behind Fleddy, Sweet Crown, side by side, heading through 13. You can see an extra grip from the softs as further back, big contact. Pease is round. Troye has dropped back quite a bit as well on the softs, but Pease got caught up in that there. What happened back there, Jake?
He was looking at overtaking Slash, sending it on the inside of 13. Instead, he got tagged by the front wing of Spicer's Ferrari instead, and was sent spinning. Gary loses another place, this time to Fleddy down the first of the isn't straights as they come towards 22 for the first time. They're keeping it. I was ready to say they'd all kept it very clean. I hadn't seen any contact up to that point. And then Pease perhaps getting a little bit of comeuppance for his blocking of out there as we've got Hazara and Luke doing battle into turn 27. They're side by side. Hazara around the outside. Can he sweep round the Aston Martin? There's battling ahead between the two Ferrari-powered Alfa Romeo and Works Ferrari as well. Sweet Crown now passes Gary. Gary's tumbling down the field here on the first lap on those hard tyres.
Indeed, he just doesn't quite have the grip. He hasn't got them fired up quite as well as Campbell does as Verstappen behind his teammate. Bit of rear locking. The car nearly goes around, just about manages to hold it. Hazara and Luke still battling. Coming out of turn number 3. Nothing to choose between them. Hazara really needs to win out here because of the soft tyres, but he doesn't. Luke manages to claim that 14th place and now has to work to stay with the trade in front. That gap is teetering up towards 1 second. Hazara looks impatient in that Haas, eagerly looking for a way through. Looks as though Shadowglow hasn't been able to establish quite so much of an early lead. Alp is going with him, and Lifeboat behind. These guys all burning a lot of battery in this opening lap, and for Lifeboat's sake, he needs to, because he's only just holding on to that Williams pair who continue to dominate out there.
I think it's already looking like it could be a Williams 1-2, fairly straightforward walk in park here. We're going to get a McLaren swap around, and Gary, I think he lifts off there for his teammate. There's no DRS in effect, but Verstappen blasted past Gary towards 22. Again, Shadowglow's disconnected, or is that me?
No, I think that's...
Shadowglow.
Yes, indeed. I can see he's now ghosted. Alp has used entirely all of his battery. Hopefully Shadowglow can get back in very soon, but he does concede the lead, of course, to his teammate. Could be a bit of a help, at least at this point, for Lifeboat. Looks as though he has managed to work his way back into that range of Alp, who does, of course, set the fastest lap of the race, just a 10th quicker than what Lifeboat managed. So Shadowglow, sadly, he is going to drop down this order quite a bit, unless he can get back in very, very quickly. Even still, that AI is going to drag him back. I think it's set at 90 difficulty in Division 1. So things beginning to settle down just a little bit out there. The difference in tyre choices, of course, keeping everything spread out. Again, we hope that Shadowglow gets back in, but just 2 places behind him. Keeping an eye on this man, Campbell, the Season 9 champion, is... Oh, you're also out of the session now.
Who am I?
For me, are you still here? Just fine?
I think... Oh no, I have now disconnected. There we go. Carry on.
Okay, well, I hope you can get yourself back in. I may have to ping you an invite myself, because I'm not sure if you've got another one. In any case, just let me know. But Alp continues to lead from Lifeboat. Yasir, who's run out of battery, has dropped back just out of that 1 second range. So the kind of snake formation, that DRS train that we predicted, well, it is coming to pass further down the field, but not for those top 2. They have begun to establish themselves and move away from the rest of the field. So Alp from Lifeboat, from Yasir now P3, and Campbell in position number 4. Fleddy is on the move. Of course, that's on Shadowglow. His AI car continues to drop back. As we head on towards the 4th lap, you have managed to get yourself back in the session. I presume you'll be able to get a good look at the running order out on track very, very soon. So Shadowglow's car continues to drop down the order. Alp leads from Lifeboat, and thankfully the Deltas have all sorted themselves out now. So Out from Lifeboat, from Yassir, from Campbell, who looks very good on those hards. As behind, I think Spicer, the Ferrari, has gone around, nearly come to a stop, and has to get out the way. Oh, Felipe just about managing to make his way around. He's been detached from the train, as of course has Pease further back after that spin on the opening lap. Can you now see the cars out on track there, Jake?
I can indeed, and I have to say, I agree with you fully. Shout out to QVR Campbell on the hard tyres. Working absolute treat, aren't they? He's motoring along in fourth, close behind Yassir and Lifebound. He doesn't seem under particular threat from Fleddy, not too much anyway, on lap 4. And the race is only going to come towards him in this first stint as we go through and those tyres get a little bit older. And I'm also impressed by Lifebound. He's doing a stonking job as well. There was a risk of those Williams running away, but no, Lifebound's with a good shout of taking the lead on track here, at least even if it's only temporarily.
Yes, he runs very close behind Alp. On the subject of Williams, by the way, Shadowglow is back in the session, currently running in 7th place. So the damage was, well, it would have hurt, but it's certainly not disastrous. He can do a lot from there, I'm sure of that. So the train snaking down runs now to P16 with Yassir in P3 really struggling to hold on himself. Alp is very low on battery. It's going to be very difficult, of course, to make that back. With Lifeboat running behind. So Lifeboat, you'd imagine, should have the advantage in terms of pace, of course, and with the huge assistance you get, I've said huge far too much tonight, the massive, we'll say, assistance of the DRS. 3 DRS zones almost consecutively in full throttle sections makes pulling away an almost impossible task around this circuit. Certainly that's not what these guys have in mind, I imagine. I think they know this race is going to remain deadlocked probably for the remainder of this first stint. That first stint may end quite soon for some of these guys. These softs will probably start to be past their best by this point. So keep an eye out on Fleddy, Shadowglow a couple of spots behind, and the rest. See if those guys are going to come in quite soon. The undercut can be very powerful, but so is the advantage of fresher tyres later on in the race. That is the pitfall of the 2 mandatory pit stops. So everything seems to be equalising. We'll see if anyone's going to try and force a move in the train, but right now everyone looks to be just happy to run their own rhythm.
Yeah, I'm just on board with Lifebound, just watching him behind Alp. He's really lifting off into the corners. He has no incentive to approach anywhere near really to the back of that Alpine or any closer than he needs to. I say that he'll probably have a send now into turn 1, but he's just building up his ERS. He's not inclined to have a fight or pick a fight because Alp's running there on 16%, while Lifebout is on 67. He's doing everything he needs to do here to put himself in with a good shout of the win later on, because Yassir is also on 16, Campbell only on 40, 46 for Fleddy. Lifebout's in a really great position. We've got Verstappen is out at turn 4, is that. No sign of a safety car. But that's a massive L for me. You said that Verstappen will be surprised with the season. Surprisingly bad, more like.
Oh dear. Well, I think that was. I think that may have been at turn 6 of. Oh no, that would have been at turn 4. You're absolutely right. So he's gone off there. Presumably, I don't think anyone was next to him. I think that was just driver error. Very rare as a driver that, when I've done some research for this season, he has done God knows how many races, far over 100, and he's only up to this point retired from 2 races. So that's an impressive show of consistency, but not the way that he wanted his season to begin, and that is going to be a major blow for the McLaren man. Further back in the field, we're seeing Shadowglow on the move. He's going to duck to the right hand side of Sweet Crown, and ultimately it's no contest in a straight line. He just got far more momentum coming out of the complex at turn 22 and 23, so Shadowglow does make one of those places back. Campbell looks to be getting fairly interested in the cars in front. Of course, in this train you certainly can move up when you're in the front there, as Lifebout is running here behind Alp. You could be a bit hesitant to make that move. You may want to just wait behind and save that battery, as Lifebout has done. He's a driver that often likes to save his. I've noticed in races where I've commentated on him before. So he is right up towards 90%, and Alp in front, things much more difficult for the Williams, man, and the pace of the race seemingly slowing quite a bit as all these top 7 now begin to stack up on each other, and Felipe is going off at the exact same corner as Verstappen. We'll see if there's any other cautions. There's a yellow flag. Is it going to be upgraded to a safety car? Spicer, Pease, Hazara, those guys have all come into the pits. There is still no safety car, but that's showing how treacherous that turn 4 is. That's 2 crashes there on 2 consecutive laps.
Yeah, I've never known that to be a particularly leery place in the race. Certainly not 16 and 22. The inside of those corners scare me more because you hit them and it can bounce you off. And look how close Lifeboat's getting. This is the pressure that Yassir and Campbell are putting on him, as he's having to get ever closer to the back of Alp to defend himself from behind. And he might be forced into an overtake here. I think he is going to be. He's going to go around the outside of 26. And Alp will happily let him go. Alp's had enough of leading this race. He's like, go on, son, you do a little bit. Oh, what a big rear lock there for Lifeboat, and contact with Alp behind him. Ooh. And now Alp's right into the clutches of Yassir as they're all diving into the pits. Goes Lifeboat, goes Yassir, and Alp and Campbell continue through.
Yes, indeed. So now we're seeing the first split on strategies. Interestingly, Shadowglow on the softs did decide to stay out, as did Troye further down the field. So we'll see the tyre choices for all these guys as they filter out of the pit lane now. Lifeboat, of course, still in front of the race. Yassir may have just been able to stay in that 1 second range with the DRS. Looks like mediums is the tyre choice for every single one of these drivers. We did expect it to be the best tyre to use this race. So out of the pit lane they come. Lifeboat, Yassir just about managing to stay within that 1 second window, blipping that overtake button to stay in contention. And you can see through turn 4 they do get very, very close to that wall. And of course the front suspensions in this game can be very, very delicate to just the smallest brush on an inside wall. So that's probably what happened to Verstappen and Felipe. Both of those guys, of course, out of the race. And rather surprisingly, no safety car being brought out, which does, of course, not give an opportunity to use up those mandatory pit stops under a safety car window. The mandatory rule does come into play now, though, because we have essentially 2 trains, both of them, you could say, fighting for the lead as Campbell moves past Alp for that race lead. So they'd swap places, and Campbell on the hards. We'll see if he extends or whether he wants to make use of that extra tyre life. Are these guys all going to come in response to the group behind? The answer for the majority seems to be yes. Campbell in, and I think Shadowglow in as well. Alp, Sweet Crown, they decide to stay out. Backy behind coming in as well as Slash, as we have another car out. This time Spicer, and this time we have a safety car. That's coming through turn 23. As you mentioned, a treacherous spot here, and we have the first safety car just as that lead group was coming into the pit lane. They'll all fit on the mediums, and this is going to shake up the order some. Or is it?
Wondering if there would be an absolute maniac who pitted last lap. You think, well, I come in and Troye's put intermediates on. An absolute maniac who pit last lap comes in again and thinks, if I put hards on, I can go to the end of the race here. I've done my 2 stops. But luckily, no one does. I mean, we are in the window now. If this was a one-stop race, you'd put hards on, you could go to the end. But no one is feeling that. Petey's coming in to take them off. What I will say about hards, actually, which I'll just circle back a little bit, is I'm surprised that Gary pitted when he did. He pitted on lap 7. I was really expecting Campbell and Gary to go deeper into the race than they did. I mean, it's lucky for Campbell he did come in that lap. But I really thought Gary would go longer than lap 7 after starting on hards. I don't think he really achieved anything by starting on them, but this is going to play beautifully into Luco 5 HD's hands from absolutely nowhere. He's going to throw himself into some really strong point contention here, and obviously goes without saying Alp and Sweet Crown as well.
Well, you say that, but let's not forget here, they do move up in terms of track position, but there is a chance for everyone else to come in as well and get the second stop out the way. I wonder if that's why Troye and Pease have both opted to put the intermediate tyres on, because, well, they can. So obviously these front 3 are all going to come in. Alp and Sweet Crown will doubtless still maintain positions 1 and 2, but I wonder about these guys that have just put the mediums on / putting the softs on the last lap. What do they decide to do, as you said, and opt for potentially a hard stint to the flag? We're watching these guys now progressing through to the end. They do. Camel decides to stay out, and Shadowglow decides to come in, as does Lifebout, as does Yassir. All these guys are going to pit, with the exception of QVR Campbell. You can see Lucas put
He
on the
doesn't have any hard
intermediates.
tyres. He doesn't have any hard tyres to put on because he started on them. It was a case of dumb and dumber for him and Gary because on the safety car struck, they haven't got hard tyres to go back onto. Oh dear, oh dear. Out the odd one though. Actually, well, he stayed out, didn't he? So so Alp, Sweetcrown, and Campbell and Gary are all, and Luke are all absolutely ruined here. God knows what Lars is doing.
So those top 6, of course, they have now done one stop. Everyone else, we're 10 laps, or 9 laps really, into this race. They've already got their pit stops out of the way. One thing that is very interesting is some drivers, I did mention that the mediums are also very durable here. Shadowglow / Troye, those guys are all going to be confident enough to stick it out on those mediums. Now that's a very interesting call here. We'll see if it works out, but with the medium tyre, with the grip advantage you have, it's going to be probably quite difficult to pull away still in those opening laps. We'll see. We saw how well Campbell was able to keep with the leaders starting on those hards, which of course has now come back to bite. And we'll see. I don't think the safety car is going to be in this lap. Whether these top 5 now, or the top 6 rather actually, are going to serve their second stop. But obviously now they're going to give up all that track position because the whole field is pretty much bunched up now. So it was a delicate balancing act, and now you sense Campbell, Alp, Sweetcrown. Luke went for inters. He's going to be coming in. There's no doubt about that. We'll see then as they come up towards the end of the 10th lap. Again, the safety car will not be in this time by. So let's see if we are going to see any pit stops amongst the race leaders. Doesn't look to be the case, apart from Luke, of course, off the inters, and is going to be giving up all that track position, but he has served both the stops now. So everyone else stays out besides Lars, who's also going to get that second stop out the way. So now we have a situation where, outside of the top 4, no one plans on pitting again. These guys at the front, they have the track position, but they don't really have a tyre advantage. So Campbell, Alp, Sweetcrown and Gary, they've really been pegged back here.
Yeah, I mean, if they had pitted, they would have been guaranteed plumb last with no tyre advantage on track anyway. So their only hope really is staying out and having another safety car happens where everyone decides to go onto a set of softs. Because either way, their races are ruined a little bit. There's no favourable outcome here. I need to cough, excuse me. But yeah, I can't see a way back into this unless something bizarre happens. Yeah, I think me saying Alp and Campbell for the podium sorry, no, I said Shanagle, didn't I? Because I said Alp doesn't get podiums. So yes, this once again, Alp having very good qualifying, getting no points. I think if I remember correctly, last season Alp, despite being really competitive, he went something like 10 races without scoring a point. A couple of DNSs, but most of them were just either him being an idiot or him having no luck and getting crashed into, or being ruined by a safety car. And so the trend continues. Jav has just sent us the footage of QVR Verstappen's retirement, which he did just clip the inside of turn 4, and it completely sheared his front left suspension. And tiny other bit of housekeeping. M/ had a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. He has served that by making his second stop a lap later. Safety car in this lap, no penalties, and from 5th down, it's to the flag, and Godspeed for the top 4.
Yes, indeed. That top 4, of course, led, as is the entire race, by Campbell, who looks to warm up those tyres. They have been more scrubbed than the others, just a couple more laps on them. That may come back a little bit near the end of the stint. We shall see. Of course, all these guys still have to pit. Is he going to open this up out of the final corner? He's going to wait. He's going to run this, as we see so often, close to the line. No, he goes now. And Alp was caught off guard there. So the gap opens up immediately. And Sweetcrown tries to capitalise. Running deep into the slipstream of the Williams in front of him. But he doesn't seem to have the wing level to be able to make that one stick. So he remains behind then. Further, we have Shadowglow under pressure from Lifeboat, who got a good start. Running up behind him on those hard tyres. Looking to keep the medium runner in front, in sight. That is the battle for the net race race lead. No changes of position then off the restart, no incidents. Everyone just filtering through nicely then, keeping themselves all poised, heading out of turn number 9 and 10. Out of the first sector, Campbell continues to lead this then, but with Alp, Sweet Crown, Gary and Shadowglow right up underneath him on those medium tyres. As we mentioned, it pulling away and a near impossibility, and well, so is making up that one pit stop deficit.
Do you have any idea how long the pit stop is here? I'll confess I don't, but we've already got a field spread of 6.5 seconds between Campbell and Lars, so I presume it needs to be at least 3 times that before Campbell can find or come out and not be at the back. But the trouble is here with the DRS train that we've kind of mentioned in the slipstream effect. You know, you don't get gaps in the train, so it just compounds an issue they've already got. If this had been some other track where the field was spread out a little bit, as Alp takes the lead of the Grand Prix, a non-event because it's not really for the effective lead. But this, if the trains weren't as much of a problem as they are, I don't think Campbell, Alp, and Sweet Crown would be in the mud quite as much as they are. But the fact the field doesn't split is a bigger problem for them, I think, than the fact they got to make another pit stop. If that made any sense.
No, it does absolutely make sense because, yeah, that gap. Because usually when you're running in front, well, these guys don't really have a tyre advantage. Maybe a very slight one over some of the hard runners at this point in the race. But the field doesn't split. Every driver still running within DRS range of the car in front. And they just run in a line, presuming, of course, there aren't going to be any major mistakes made by anyone in the train that can split this up. So that's what we've got to look out for. That is going to be any time a gap opens up greater than 1 second is a key event in this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as they head out of turn 13 onto the return journey, if you like, down the other side of the track. They continue out there in Alp. You can see that raw pace though, stretching it out, using a lot of battery and just trying it as he might to get away before that DRS really comes into play. The gap 0.7 of a second to Campbell behind. He is also, of course, burning a lot of battery, using that ERS and just about managing to keep Alp in contention. The first DRS event is in the middle of the middle sector, right at the midpoint of the lap, just out of turn 16 and 17, heading out down there. That's the first of the DRS zones that's going to be brought into use. So Alp is trying to take advantage now. He does a 1:29.1 fastest lap. That is almost not too far off from Luke's qualifying time, I do believe. So he's running a searing pace out in front, but you can see even now it's just not enough. It's Gary though with less battery and a bigger gap to the cars in front. He may be the only driver that seems to be struggling a bit more with the pace, trying to make it up to the first sector, as the first time penalty by corner cutting has been given out. That's Hazara running 9th on the hard tyres. He's got a penalty, and he has Backy in the Red Bull right up behind him.
I think Luke will be getting one soon. I saw Luke do the most audacious corner cut of all time at turn 17 on the last lap. I wonder if Shadowglow could do a little bit of a favour out. They worked together so well in qualifying. Could Shadowglow just run at enough of a pace, but not too quick, not too slow, that just allows Alp every chance to try and pull away? If he can just back life out, yes it up as much as he possibly humanely can, get his Checo Perez elbows out. But I don't think that's necessarily an option, actually. So ignore what I just said. Sweet Crown, though, looks very hungry for P2. He's right on the back of Campbell's Alpine, and he doesn't even need his ERS. He's going to be in a position to overtake it around the outside 27. In fact, Campbell's decided the best form of defence is attack. He was looking at a send there on Alpine to turn 27, as Shadowglow goes very deep on Gary in turn 27. He makes the move, but look how he drove away on traction there from the McLaren. So a change of place for P4, nearly one for the lead, could be another one for the lead here, as Sweet Crown gets boxed in into turn 1. Campbell has a look at Alp, can't do anything of it, and Alp boxed in there with Sweet Crown. He also just had to sit and concede and wait for P3 as well. Our field spread has only creeped up to 8.4 seconds. When they pit, these four, with Gary being the last in 5th, are going to be absolutely nowhere.
Yes, that slight increase in field speed is, look, has gone off at the exact same corner. And it's a VSC, not a full safety car that has been deployed, so that essentially does nothing to the larger race situation. So we just have a little bit of a breather. Yes, look, not the start to life in Division 1 he wanted. And again, turn 4, catching yet another driver out there. Again, I don't believe he was running side by side with anyone. So that's both Aston Martins out. Really, from start to finish, it's been a disaster for that team in this opening round. So both of those guys now out of the running. And it means now, something else that we haven't mentioned tonight, point scoring has been extended to the top 15. So every single driver that finishes now will get points. So no one has to worry about missing out on that regard. There's always a chance of gaps opening up in a VSC restart, and maybe they have. Gary just missed the jump there. Lifeboat caught behind him, and Lifeboat has to get a move done quickly here because Shadowglow is further up the road now.
I was looking back at the back of the field. Rocco and Lars have dropped well off. I don't know what's happened to them, because I said the gap was around 9 seconds. It's now 10.5. Lifeboat blitzes past Gary down the only straight on the track there into turn 1. He takes P5, and he's still within a real shot of victory here if he can draw himself back towards Shadowglow's DRS between now and the end of the race. Every chance Lifeboat can take a D1 victory as Fleddy gets a little out of shape through turn 4 there. It's continuing to be a devilishly tricky little corner, and I don't think anything else is happening further down. I just had a look if Rocco or Lars had damage. They hadn't. They just had a misadventure somewhere that means they lost a lot of time in the space of one lap. But we're in a bit of a holding pattern, aren't we? It doesn't seem like what we see now, barring Gary and the top 3, this could well be the way the race ends. I hope it isn't, but we're looking at a Shadowglow, Lifebout and Yassir top 3.
As it stands, that may be the case. Of course, Gary, though, really becoming a bit of a bottleneck here. He is on the oldest tyres in the field, and Yassir wisely manages to be clinical and pick him off. Gary will have DRS himself. Fleddy will look to take full advantage, though, of the lessened pace of the McLaren. He's tucked into the slipstream. Gary using a bit of overtake actually to defend. He's going to get it right up to the back of Yassir. Gets blocked off, and Fleddy finds that gap on the inside of 27 and is going to steal that place away. And there's a big gap behind to Hazara. As further up the road, we have Sweet Crown swarming left and right behind Campbell. Campbell is forced to the outside. Sweet Crown looking down the middle, can't quite find it. Campbell round the outside, takes the lead. Alp is caught on the apex of turn 1, has to drive around the long way of turn 2 to hold on to that second place, and Campbell almost unwillingly goes to the race lead. Out on track, Shadowglow honing in on these guys, as is Lifeboat. And these guys battling, potentially slowing each other up. They were certainly slowing each other up through that section. It may allow the likes of Fleddy and Yassir back into this fight. Gary did come in, by the way. Those mediums were not serving him well, so he now gets his second stop out the way. We are still waiting on the top 3 to get the final event of pitting out of the way. Campbell, Alp, Sweet Crown, Shadowglow, Lifeboat, now Fleddy and Yassir. It's a 7-car train for the lead of this race as it stands, but it's really the lower 4 cars in the train that you have to keep an eye on. So really now, the jeopardy of potentially a split amongst the guys fighting for the net race lead, as we saw with everyone getting past Gary, is potentially Shadowglow making a move on Sweet Crown potentially, and maybe Lifeboat not being able to follow through. That's something you've got to keep an eye on as the top 3 continue to run. You can see Alp coasting almost near the end of the straight. Will these guys respond to that Gary pit stop? Of course, Gary did lose a few seconds behind as Hazara and Baki go battling in to that final corner. Still wheel to wheel out of it. Campbell does pit from the lead, so he does drop back a couple of spots. Sweet Crown moves swept past Alp, so he now leads this race from Alp. Shadowglow, his teammate, behind, and you sense now, you said earlier that Shadowglow may be able to play for Alp here. I wonder if they're going to coordinate their efforts here again, with them now running nose to tail almost out there on the circuit. So Campbell does come in, the mediums are on, he'll emerge, I presume, just a bit in front of Gary. So we're waiting on just those 2, and well, before we know it, we are in the closing stages of this race, just 7.5 laps from the checkered flag, and the battle for the lead beginning to brew as Lifeboat on the hards looks ever racy, trying to get up to the back of Shadowglow on the faster, less durable mediums in front of him.
I'm currently fascinated by the battle P7 of Aki, Troye, M/Slash and Hazara. Troye is riding some skinny wings on that hat. Absolutely blitzed past M/Slash and Hazara down the pit straight. Nearly sent it on Baki towards turn 1, and you can see he's gaining so much down the isn't straight from so far back. Look at the gaining towards turn 22. I've no idea if you're watching him. He's got complete understeer into turn 22, but that thing goes like a rocket in a straight line. Speaking of rockets, here comes Alp up to the back of Sweet Crown into turn 27. I mean, these guys, I think it's in their interest not to fight each other, but I think they realise their races are kind of screwed either way, so they may as well have some fun.
Oh, watch
here
this.
comes Alp. Going to pass Campbell. Look at Shadowglow behind them as well. Shadowglow sensibly stays well out. But Alp with a massive send on Sweet Crown. Goes very deep, but scoops the car up on the exit through turn 2 and does a nice job. Troyer is past Backy into turn 1, and his wings coming into full fruition there. And I think P's passed at Zara into the last corner as well. Some nice little battling going on. Scruffy driving though. I was looking back on the last lap. Pease and Zara were running all off track at turn 10, where they are now. It's a little messy down the back end of the field, but it's good racing. As I just scroll back even further, Rocco's got all over the curb at turn 8, and they completely missed 9, 10, 11, and the kink of 12. So he's having a difficult race, shall we say.
Running all on his own. A big gap in front of him, a big gap behind him. Yes, 2 seconds in this context is a very, you could call it a chasm between two cars. So just the top two out on track haven't done their second mandatory stop. Alp leads. He's burned pretty much all of that battery, so I am expecting a pit stop on this lap. Sweet Crown will gain, and then he'll left, and then he'll turn off the DRS, and then he'll tuck in behind with Shadowglow running behind. The pace is still very high because the hard runners have struggled a little bit to get right up on the back. There is the stop from Alp. He dives in. Shadowglow behind Sweet Crown. The double DRS there with Sweet Crown having it as well, preventing an opportunity of potentially escaping there if he managed to get past into turn number 1. That could have been a decisive move. Instead, he's forced to wait and lifeboat, saving enough of his battery that he still has some leeway, but he's decided to remain tucked in, and he's still comfortably sitting within that DRS range. One man that isn't is Yassir, who's run out of battery and is scrapping to get back to that lead quartet.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised how much he's fallen off. Unless he just picked up a chip of wing damage somewhere. As Rocco's retired, that's at turn 7 or 8, and we've got another virtual safety car. Imagine if that had been a full. Count your lucky stars if you Sweet Crown. Instead, count your unlucky stars. Yeah, shout out to Fleddy. Surprised with Yassir that he's fallen off a little bit in this stint, because Fleddy, he's up 5 places, and that's not including Sweet Crown's yet to stop. So he's going to go from 9th to the podium, Fleddy. He's had a fairly anonymous race, hasn't he? We've not spoken about him too much, but he's well on course for a podium place. That move on Yassir earlier on was crucial. And Sweet Crown will be hoping the virtual safety car stays out just long enough that at the very least he could come out ahead of Campbell and Alp. Campbell is cleared out by nearly 5 seconds, although that will close up when the VSC goes in. I think Sweet Crown might gain some advantage, but it's arbitrary and in this context.
Well, I believe the VSC is just about to end, so I'm not sure how much that advantage will be. These guys are able to run at 310 kilometers an hour down the straight, and there it is now. The VSC has ended, hopefully, in its green flag running all the way to the checkered flag. Shadowglow leads from Lifeboat, from Fleddy. Yassir just dangling off the back. Troyer runs 5th, rounds off that top 5. With that, Rocket Ship in a straight line. Got Backy, Peas, and Slash, and Hazara all ticked in underneath on similar age tyres, almost the same age in fact, raring to go racing behind him. And well, behind that, it's just a bunch of cars who maybe the race hasn't quite unfolded in the ways that they expected. So, out of turn 13, we have your lead group. We are going to keep more attention on this in the next couple of laps, which will be, of course, the last couple of laps. Shadowglow from Lifeboat, and still Shadowglow's pace is putting Lifeboat and Fleddy under pressure here. We know how easy it is to follow here, but using quite a bit more battery, Shadowglow is making every attempt he can to try and make a break here.
I don't think he's going to be able to do it, though. I mean, he's got less CRS. If he does break out the second, Lifeboat can just use that surplus to close his way back in, and the DRS neutralises any gains that Shadow Glow makes around the rest of the lap. It's just going to and fro. I think penalty for Lars van der Linden up behind. I say up ahead, up behind. Back, he's had a send on Troyer into turn 27. He takes P5. Big gainers in this race, particularly from that safety car situation on lap 9. Back, up 6 places. Troyer's up 10, despite losing that one. He could pull this one back, but no. He hangs off a move there. Lots of new names to the top of D1. Shadowglow, Lifebout, Fleddy. It's going to be 3 newcomers to a League of Europe podium, a Division 1 podium anyway. As Alps, let's start after the race, down in P13. It's a little consolation for a race that could have been so much more for him. And Sweet Crown is going to be currently the best of that quartet that were forced to stay out. And they could yet have more points on offer. I think, well, Lars van der Linden with that penalty definitely will drop behind Sweet Crown and Campbell, possibly Hazara as well. And who knows, they might just catch up to that Hazara M/train. It's 8 seconds actually, they've got 4 laps, so that's not going to happen, but they could get within Hazara's penalty window. It's an unlucky race for those guys. They've all ran very well, haven't they? It's one of those bizarre situations where they haven't really made a mistake, have they, any of them? It was just pure bad luck, although I'd say Gary and Campbell miscalculated by starting on the hard tyre.
Yes, your Dumb and Dumber call did prove to be correct. In the lead battle, Fleddy has been distanced by the infernal pace of Shadowglow, but Lifebout has hung in there and has a 30% ERS advantage. Is he going to wait, though, to put that to good use? Again, lifting down that main straight. Backy and Troyer's battle resumes. Troyer is going to get a good run down the main straight. It's going to be an easy pass in towards turn 1, and Pease looks to follow through. Can he get a double? He's going to break much later into turn 1. Can he get it stopped? There is a bit of contact, but he does get through. Backy tries to fight back on Troyer. Goes right the way around turn 2. They get all tangled up through 3, and Backy had to get out of that one. Slash just tucked in behind, observing as Backy lost out there. Pease, well, that was quite a send, wasn't it? Using that double toe, using all the battery straight line speed to good use, and he got that one done on the bricks, and he got it done, I would say, pretty cleanly. There was a bit of contact, but I don't think Pease did initiate that one, so he runs inside the top 5. That's quite a turn up for the books, running another driver that's moved up and made 4 pit stops in this race. Remember, he was backwards, sideways at turn 13 on the opening lap, so it's quite the recovery drive from Ariel Pease, now inside the top 5, but with a long line of cars eagerly anticipating that move, trying to get that place back. So we have 2 battles to look out for out on track, and of course there's that leading duel between Shadowglow and Lifebound as Campbell moves past Lars van der Linden there, trying to recover, and hasn't quite been able to follow Sweet Crown. In fact, Sweet Crown on fresh softs is flying and will surely get within range of Hazara and almost catch up with that 5th place battle, which may change hands yet again as Troyer looks outside of turn 27. Backy is tucked in right underneath both of them. Who's going to get the DRS down the main straight? It's going to be neither of them, and Backy has the opportunity to make it 3 wide on the inside, heading up towards turn 1. Can he claim that place? He's going to break deep on that shallow line and does get P5 back. That's 2 double moves down the straight. Further back, Troyer and Slash are running almost parallel up towards turn 4, and they make contact on the entry. Slash had to get out of that one. He still remains at the rear of the train as Troyer drops back this time after looking like he was on the offensive. Wow, wow, wow. How quickly can things change in these scraps, and Sweet Crown is going to get in and amongst it right at the end here. Serious pace being put down by the Mercedes on those fresh softs, but will he be able to make an impression in terms of on-track overtakes? We will see. Jake, we've got a lap and a half to go, and it's still a deadlock battle between the top 2. Shadowglow has done all he can from the lead, but Lifebout has over 80% battery. That's going to be almost impossible to hold back, you would think.
I think Lifebout's done what he needed to do. He kept it together through turn 22 last lap. He lost 0.2 of a second, nearly quarter of a second there, and it just put him so far back on the run to 27. Now he has the opportunity to stick with Shadowglow, to pick his moment. If I was him, I'd make the move to turn 1 and then dump my ERS on the 2 isn't straights on the next lap. I've got a full complement of ERS, but he's playing a high risk, I think, relatively low reward game here by keeping everything for the last moment. Get the move done early, dictate the pace. If he's got the ERS to use, and he has, he can offset the DRS advantage that Shadowglow would have later in the lap because he's got so much ERS. It would only be a problem. He'd only want to hold back if you didn't have your battery to use. Let's look at the battle for P5, and Sweet Crown's getting right in here amongst M Slash. There's one move done. Hazara will be a second on penalties. Hazara was just vibing with that penalty on the last lap. I'm just like, I'm happy to be here, guys. But no, he's trying to get involved now. But Sweet Crown will be... He can see Pease is 6th place ahead of him. He wants to make every move he can, but he's got nowhere else to use. Hazara gets all over the curb at turn 10. And can Sweet Crown force something here? There's no big braking zones. That's the problem until we get to turn 27. So... let's go back to the battle for the lead instead. Life Battle's in that DRS zone. He's still not using his DRS. He's going to have too much in reserve, I think, as we get towards turn 22. He's got to follow the Williams so closely through this tricky complex, but I think he's done it, Daka.
He's got a brilliant run out of turn 22 and 23, and this should be a formality. He's in the slipstream. He's on the overtake button. He pulls to the right-hand side. It's going to be the long way around. The second isn't straight, but it doesn't matter. Can Shadowglow send one back? He looks, he feints, but he can't quite find the braking. And Lifebout may have stolen it right at the last. He's going to be coming under pressure on the run to the line, but Shadowglow's going to be derating. It's going to be a photo as they come up towards the line. Can Lifebout hold on? Yes, he can! By 1/10 of a second. Lifebout is your winner. Fleddy just holds off Yassir for the podium, and another run to the line, this time Pease from Baki, from Troye. Sweet Crown jumps Hazara on penalties, as does M Slash. Campbell will come home at P11. He's going to drag Lars and Alp to the line, who does of course jump up 12th on penalties. Lars 13th, and Gary will come across the line in 14th position. As always in Jeddah, that powerful DRS, that searing slipstream does create those opportunities if you are patient up to that point, and we saw that in full use there. Lifebout, the reserve driver, taking that win. Shadowglow, you sense he was the fastest driver out there along with his teammate, but ultimately there's not much you could do about that inferno coming from behind you on that final lap.
Oh, that was just... Oh, look at him, levitating over the podium there. That was a frantic, frenetic battle. I really thought Lifebat had done the wrong thing. I still think he did the wrong thing, to be honest. I think a safer bet was to try and make the move into turn 1, but he wanted his name in lights. He wanted the grandstand moment of making it into the last corner, and in the end, it doesn't matter. No one will remember. They'll just remember that he won this race, and a last corner overtake. What more can you want to start a League of Europe Division 1 season? And I have to say, that was a far better race than I was expecting after that safety car period where everyone had made their 2 stops. I thought it's going to be a long one to the end here, but no, it delivered on its promise, and a podium for Fleddy as well, which I think is very well deserved. Lifeout wins from Shadowglow, and Fleddy Yassir Seki is 4th on his League of Europe debut. Then Pease, what a drive from him. Baki and Troye as well. Sweet Crown recovered as well as he possibly could out of those 4 that stayed out. M Slash Hazara, Campbell 11th, Alp 12th, Lars van der Linden 13th, Gary 14th. Every finisher gets points, of course, under the new point system. Rocco 15th, Luke and Spicer, Felipe and Verstappen, those last 5. All non-finishers, and Sweet Crown picks up an extra point or an extra 2 for fastest lap in P9.
Yes, indeed. I believe it's just an extra 1 point. I will have to check on that. Nevertheless, that is going to bring to an end the first round of the League of Europe Season 11 D1 Championship. And yes, we did get the grandstand finish, which is, to be honest, fairly common in league racing on F1 23. You can just see, though, when you run behind, and we saw it as well in that 5th place battle, in particular with Troye, as you mentioned. Just, you can become a missile when you're really going for it with those DRS zones, because how that closing speed can be pretty spectacular at times. And Lifebout, well, he was patient, probably, as you said, probably a bit too patient for your liking, but he saved up an entire battery to use on that final lap. He didn't even have to make full use of it, but ultimately, because when you run in front, it's harder to save it, and we saw it with Shadowglow. He was actually derating on the run to the line and just couldn't close up the distance out of that final corner.
Yeah, we've seen it before. You come out of that last corner, and sometimes you do get such a launch off 27 on the exit, especially in those situations. You're a little bit nervy. You're a little either too cautious or too zealous with the throttle, and you can invite the car in behind. But I think if the ERS situation has been reversed out of the last corner, you could have seen a proper photo finish. But as it was, Lifeboat Ahead did have the ERS to defend. But yeah, it was a breathless situation. But I will hand over to you to end the stream because I need to tap in org chat. But hopefully we get more of the same. What is it? What have we got next week? Silverstone, I believe. Another train to follow.
Well, that does seem to essentially sum up league racing on this game. It is Silverstone for the next round. If you're okay with it, because I was going to come back to you soon, I'm going to ask you for your hot take from this first round. What do you have to say?
Gary's a qualifying merchant, which is never something I thought I'd ever have to say. What is my hot take? I mean, I was disappointed with Verstappen. I was positively surprised by Fleddy and Shadowglow. Okay, here's my hot take. That'll be Lifeboat's only podium of the season.
Well, there we go. We will see if Lifeboat is going to prove Jake wrong. Of course, as we've mentioned, next week will come to you. It is going to be the British Grand Prix from Silverstone, of course, a legendary track throughout F1's history, so make sure to tune in to that one. So, I believe with just about everything said and done for the first round of League of Europe Division 1 Season 11, from the dynamic duo of Dake H and Jake M, it is good night and see you later.